So I'm here today with Steve Orobec. He's with BT. He's their lead consultant of strategy, architecture, and innovation. And we're here to talk today about Prospero. So I wanted to ask Steve, what is it that's unique about Prospero compared to some other standards programs at the TM Forum?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Susanna. I was involved in the initial MTOSI team going back to about 2005, etc. And one of the things we've been trying to do in BT is to get commoditized standards products that we can buy off the shelf from our vendors, and we've been trying to look at ways that we can do that. And basically Prospero is one of these ways. We know that a service provider has implemented it there, so it gives it the credibility that we know it works in a real live environment. We know that it provides a reference implementation so that we can test our sort of vendors' compliance to that reference implementation. It provides a full document suite so that we know how to integrate it and implement it. And basically it gives us confidence that what we're implementing and integrating will work in a real network environment.
Okay, so it helps, in essence, it helps you to productize the interfaces that come out of like the interface program, in essence?
That's correct. I mean, one of the long-term strategic objectives that I'm working on in the TMF as the sort of lead BT delegate is to try and get as many sort of Prospero implementations as possible, and then get as many of our vendors to offer them as commercial offerings so that we can just buy off the shelf, if you like, rather than having to describe the problem space and then get them to develop a sort of particular interface. So, it's a bit, in the same way that you would buy a network, really.
Okay. And how important do you think it is that systems integrators and vendors commit to the Prospero program for service providers like yourselves?
Well, very important. I mean, I think, one of the things I'm trying to do is to sort of like convince the vendors that they should do this, both internally in BT and externally when I go to sort of the standards meetings. I think it makes sense for both service providers and vendors, because if you think about it, from a vendor point of view, you don't really want to have to support hundreds of different service provider specific implementations. You've only got so many people in your workforce. So ideally, it makes good sense for the vendors as well as the service providers, and it gives it gives people the confidence, the flexibility that they're buying a commercialized packaged product that will work.
Right.
And has guarantees that it will work because it's been implemented elsewhere.
Right. So can you explain a little bit about what a Prospero implementation package is? Can you define what that is?
Yes. Well, I mean, in BT we successfully implemented MTOSI's Get Inventory package. I was involved in the initial definition of that, and I was involved in the initial consultation with our vendors that led to that particular implementation in BT, which we ultimately won a Prospero award at last year's TNW here in Nice. But basically what it gives us is that it gives us the DDP sort of documentation suite from the TMF. It gives you all the sort of necessary documents that you need to build this particular productized API, if you like. It gives you a reference implementation that people can refer to so that they know how to build it. I mean, which is very important when you get down to the very low level aspects of an API, because some of them, especially the integrators, you've got two sets of people. You've got the business people who say, yeah, go and do it, and then you've got the integrators who have to go and build it, and they need to know at a detail level how sort of the bits fit together. Right. And so it gives you all the necessary bits in the box, if you like, so that you can just take it and say, I want one of those, and go and implement it.
Okay. So in addition to the documentation, is there other support and training that comes with a Prospero package? Is it just documentation, or is there peripheral benefits as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously sort of support from the teams in the TMF as well, and then we were quite lucky in BT that we had people who'd worked in the initial Get Inventory specification as well, so I was able to do a lot of the support work as well.
I would like to ask you why you went with Prospero rather than an in-house or proprietary solution. What drove you to use Prospero? How did you get support from upper management to continue forward now with it?
Yeah, well, this is a long story, but I'll cut to the chase. Really, we were in a situation where we had a multiple vendor scenario, and we needed to do the integration quickly according to a project schedule. And the choices that we had were go proprietary, i.e. sort of get all the vendors into a room and thrash out a solution from scratch, if you like, or sort of reuse some existing proprietary interface, or because of my involvement in the initial BT sort of evangelism of mTOSI, we could take a ready-made product off the shelf, which saved, must have saved about 80% of the effort of building this particular interface, because it did most of the things we wanted to do. So it was a no-brainer in the end, and when we obviously had a little bit of skepticism from our own internal developers and some of the vendors, but by and large, once we'd actually integrated it, all of them came back and said that that it was a very sort of good way of doing things, and it's just getting over that initial hurdle of using standards that you have to sort of conquer. And the proof of the pudding is that if that particular implementation hadn't have worked and it hadn't have been successful, we wouldn't be here now, because we would have lost credibility. So the fact that we're still actually looking to do even more Prospero work and more standards work is proof that it did work. And indeed, what we're trying to do, we're feeding requirements back into the new TIP program to generate new APIs. For example, one of the things we're doing is a test and diagnostics API. We're working with a lot of our vendors. We're using sort of the existing mTOSI principles, and in parallel we're doing the work in the TMF, or we'll be doing the work in the TMF, so that ultimately the thing we do to meet our project timescales in BT will be very closely aligned with the work that gets done in the TMF. So there'll only be a small gap which we can then sort of close at the end. So yeah, it's a work in progress, and the fact that we're still doing it is proof that it does work.
Right, and there's that complementary flow between the interface program and Prospero.
Yeah, so we're raising the change requests into the TIP, getting the appropriate people working on them, and ultimately we would like to sort of offer it as a Prospero solution as well.
Right. Well, thank you very much for explaining, the complementary relationship between the TIP, the interface program, and the Prospero program.
Absolutely.